Guyana government hoping to extend the deadline it has to hold elections. And in sport, Jamaica's REGGAE girls hoping to create upsets in the upcoming Pan Am Games. I'm Ricardo Roberts and this is Caribbean in 10 for Wednesday, July 24th. I'll be back with the details after the break.
You know, I am really appreciative because I know this affects perhaps, hundreds of thousands of New Jerseyans and, of course, people from around the area. Because, of course, a lot of New York, New Jersey, and so much of this area intermingle. So this really does affect a large percentage of our viewing audience. So first of all, there's something called the ADA. Could you please explain what the ADA is and how it affects people?
So former Vice President Joe Biden is the frontrunner by a very wide margin in the way too early race for the 2020 Democrat Party nomination for president. Now, I have legitimate concerns about a potential President Biden because of where he wants to put his hands. And no, I'm not referring to that issue. I'm talking about his desire to put his hands, or the hands of our government, deeply into our pockets. Joe Biden is determined that the flood of illegal immigrants violating our border
Guyana's Attorney General Basil Williams says the government is optimistic it will get the two-thirds yes vote it needs in the National Assembly to push back the date for regional and general elections. He says the extended period would give the government, opposition and Guyana Elections Commission more time to reach agreement on a date for elections and other issues. Williams said if the government fails to get the majority votes it needs, then it falls back on President David Granger to set a date for elections. The country is being forced into early polls following a December 21st, 2018 no-confidence motion against the government. The Constitution states that unless an extension is approved by a two-thirds majority vote of the National Assembly, elections must be held within 3 months after the passage of a no-confidence motion. But the government challenged the validity of the motion and it went as far as the country's highest court, the Caribbean Court of Justice, which on June 18th validated the motion and later indicated that the 3-month period for elections would effectively start from that date, effectively pushing the deadline to September 18th. But a house-to-house registration process to create a new voters list is underway and is being opposed by the opposition People's Progressive Party, the PPP, which says it will not be finished in time to go to the polls. Opposition leader Barack Jagdeo says his party will not accept any voters list coming out of the registration exercise. Meantime, CARICOM says it will not interfere in Guyana's affairs unless the judicial and democratic processes break down. CARICOM Secretary General Ambassador Erwin Larocque made that clear on the heels of opposition leader Barack Jagdeo, saying he was disappointed that the 15-member regional trade and integration bloc has not made its voice heard on the political situation in Guyana. Ambassador Larocque says time must be given for the process to work, and it has done so thus far. He said he has been in touch with both the president and opposition leader and has informed that CARICOM is prepared to assist if both parties ask for help.
And the CCJ, in my view, was very, very clear that all the actors concerned, the executive, the opposition and the GCOM, must play their part. As I understand it, there continues to be dialogue among the parties. We continue to monitor everything very, very, very closely. We remain available to assist if we're asked to assist, but CARICOM does not interfere unless the democratic and the judicial process breaks down. We are very much engaged as far as I'm concerned. I read all kinds of things in the media, but that's our position going forward. It does not mean that we don't care, it doesn't mean that we're not engaged. We are fully engaged.
And Jamaica has reactivated its Ebola virus disease response plan in the wake of the outbreak of the deadly disease in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The World Health Organization last week declared the outbreak a public health emergency of international concern. And Jamaica's Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says that although the current global risk of transmission of Ebola remains relatively low, Jamaica is prepared for any eventuality of the virus reaching its shores.
The Ebola virus disease response plan implemented in 2015 is being activated to increase awareness and educate stakeholders, Mr. Speaker. We are also, and I'm addressing through a number of particular initiatives, firstly undertaking specialized training and retraining of relevant stakeholders, including immigration and customs personnel, port health staff, public health departments, clinical care teams, and all persons who may handle specimen. Secondly, enhancing surveillance at ports of entry to the island through sensitization and screening. Thirdly, as well as reviewing clinical protocols for management and infection control practices. Mr. Speaker, we are also reinforcing our lab response capabilities and preparing isolation areas at our public health facilities.
Earlier this week, St. Lucia's Chief Medical Officer Dr. Merlene Fredericks-James said the country had also activated its Ebola preparedness plans, and Barbados' Ministry of Health and Wellness said it was reviewing and updating its Ebola plan to ensure authorities are able to respond effectively if the need arises. And stay with us, your Midday Sport is next. This year's World Cup Finals, Jamaica REGGAE girls will now turn their attention to the Pan Am Games in Lima, Peru. The Jamaicans are hopeful of creating upsets against the tough teams they will face in the group stages. TVJ's Simon Preston reports.
After gracing the international stage at the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup in France, the REGGAE girls will now be heading to Lima, Peru for their first appearance at the Pan Am Games since 2007. 11 out of the 23 squad members from the World Cup will be heading to South America for the Pan Ams. The Jamaicans will face Mexico, Colombia and Paraguay in the group stages of the tournament. The top two teams from the group stages will advance to the semi-finals of the competition.
I think we'll do well. We're definitely ready to represent Jamaica and perform well. We are going to obviously go in with the mindset that we're going to win. We're here to play games. We're here to progress and get better. So that's what we need to do.
Training has been good. We've been working really hard, and I think we can do well at this tournament.
Schneider adds that the experience on the world stage also gives the team a boost.
Well, being on the biggest stage and going against the best teams obviously gives us really good experience. Like we have to push ourselves then on the biggest stage, and we just have to continue doing the same thing now.
With the Pan Am Games and the Olympic qualifiers on the horizon, head coach Hugh Menzies is delighted with regular competitive games for the team.
It gives us an opportunity not only to prepare for the Olympics but sustain our program, which is important, especially after the World Cup, to identify another crop of players, because we want to sustain this. In the next 4 years, we want to be going to wherever that World Cup is. We want to be there.
That's Caribbean Intent. Join us again at 6:30 for Caribbean Newsline. Good afternoon.